So those of you that have been with us, we've been doing this. I think this is our fifth webinar workshop series, and I'm so excited to have so many faces back and working with us. I will tell you, this is probably one of the most basic back to just balanced blended learning classrooms. So you might hear some things that you've heard in the past. So thanks for joining with me. But this is, I think, about the third one I think we've done in the blended learning series. We have two series going on. One that's the student-centered series, and this one is the blended learning series. So thank you again for joining us. My name is Kim Loomis. I've been around for a while. I did retire from Clark County School District. When I did, I was the director for online and blended learning back in 2019, but they tell me when you retire, you need to follow your passions. So that's what I do. I got to do this, which I absolutely love. I love sharing online and blended learning pedagogy and just best practices. So I have this great opportunity with the State Department of Education in Nevada there to go ahead and share that expertise. So for most of you, probably have heard my name because I am from Las Vegas, and I know we've got a pretty good crowd from Las Vegas. So today, just four things. We're going to talk a little bit about your vision for your classroom and just do some brief on CIA blended, and then really talk about how do we balance blended in our learning classrooms. So let's start here, because this is going to be really, really important to you guys. I truly believe that the core business of schools is relationships and learning. And I will tell you, relationships comes before learning. It's truly a hierarchy. If we do not develop our relationships with our students, it's really hard to get them to learn. So I am a big, big fan of that. Relationships has to come first. It has to be the high fives in the hall, the how did the football game go last night? How's your little sister? I heard she wasn't feeling well. I mean, all of those things, those relationships mean so much to kids. Then they will learn for you. Right? So let's always think about, as we're going through this, and today we're going to talk about that 1/3 balance. And I truly believe that our students have an equal part in that 1/3 balance, as well as yourself in the technology. So go ahead and go over to chat for me. And I'd like you to go ahead and tell me, why do you like blended learning? Puts the student in control. Like it, Lucas. That's a good one. Engaging for students, Ruth. That's a good one. Student-centered. Yes, all of these. You guys are rocking it. I love it. Yeah, there's lots of reasons why blended learning is really a pedagogy that we want to bring into our classrooms. And, you know, we had an opportunity to kind of play around with the emergency remote because of COVID. But as you and I know, that wasn't quality, because it was just an emergency, right? I want to say it was emergency remote learning. So we know that we can do better now that we have this opportunity and our kids are back in our classrooms. And so first thing I want to say is I know that all of you have been working really, really hard over the last 6 months with adapting to what we've had. Right? We had the kids out for 18 months and now they're in, and some of them have gaps and a lot of them have behavior problems, right? Because they just, you know, we have an 8th grader that really has the mind of a 6th grader because it's been out 18 months, right? So, I mean, I know that it's been really tough. And so that's really been a tough time for you, but I really love reading your guys' narratives. It is so fun when I go into the Canvas workshop and read your narratives and find out how much your kids are enjoying blended, how much you're enjoying blended. And so what I want to do is I want to take a moment and I want to share with you a video that comes out of Texas. This is probably one of my favorite videos. So this is 6 reasons why we love blended learning. It's about 2 minutes at the most. And you look for a reason that might have showed up over in our chat.
Blended learning combines online instruction with traditional schooling, where students have some control over when,
Thank you, Heidi.
How, and where they learn.
I just love doing computers because it's fun. I'm learning a lot in math and in reading.
With 35-year-olds and having 10 on computers and 10 doing work and 10 with teachers was really different, but I love it. Oh, what's the word? Came, very good. This would be camp. It's really great, and you're able to take a group of 5 kids, differentiate it, make sure it's at their level, and get kids to learn the skills that they need to be independent readers by the end of kindergarten, which is just amazing to see. How do you know that the sunlight does not touch the carrots?
We do what's called flip lessons. We have our classwork done at home and our homework done in class.
40, 46.
I knew that there would be a chance to have a lot of small group time with kids, and that's something that I love.
A tanagram is many shapes that are put together in a way to create something, and it can be put together in any way.
So it will print on the cardboard.
So each month they take an assessment through iStation. As teachers, we're able to view those results as well and see where percentile ranking they are, see what areas they're struggling with.
Like you try to get Gigi, he's a penguin, back to his own iceberg.
I'm so close, like this close.
So you're not just getting Gigi to his iceberg, but at the same time, you're learning more math.
You can see why it's one of my favorite videos. It's so awesome. So I noticed a couple of the 6 things that showed up are some of the things that showed up over on the left-hand side. So the 6 that they actually threw up, right? Supports teachers, personalizes learning, increases one-to-one in small groups, enables student ownership, monitors student achievement, and engages students. Now, you guys, we've done animation on Zoom before, so sometimes it's up in the more. Currently, you're viewing Kim's screen, so oftentimes it's up in that view options. Look for annotate, and there's usually a stamp. You can use check mark, pluses, hearts, whatever. Which 1 or 2 is probably your favorite? And again, you can unmic yourself. You don't, Lucas, love it. Monitors achievement. I will say my favorite is probably number 4, the ownership. I absolutely love the ownership. I've always talked about, how can we create ownership for our kids, because they'll learn from us so much better if we have those relationships and if they can take ownership of their own learning. If they think I'm just giving them a grade, then we're in the wrong place, because they earn that grade, right? So that's the difference between that one word, giving, and earning, is that ownership. And number 6 is probably another one that's my favorite, engages the students. I know I saw that over in chat earlier today. Yeah, that's an awesome one to show up there. Mine is number 2, Ruth. I like that. Personalizes the learning. Good. Personalize the learning, Amy. I love it. Yeah, there's so many reasons why we can really get into blended learning. And I do like the fact that this video actually gives us, 4 different or 6 different things that we can think about. But what we want to do is we want to think about what is your reason for doing blended. So when we think about our vision for blended learning, this becomes really important. This years ago, and that was, I would say, I don't know, probably in 2016, but it still stands true. And this, you'll find this actually, guys, in the Canvas course. So don't feel like you have to go rush out and find it today, because it is in the Canvas course. But what they really talk about is, in this white paper, they talk about it's 3 things. It's mindset, skills, and qualities that make the difference. But when I looked at the diagram that they put together, it was a target. It looked like this target, right? The blue ring on the outside, the purple ring, and then you got the green and the orange in the middle. And I started thinking, that's really not how it works. Because oftentimes when we see an image like that, we think about, oh, we got to get to the middle, or we start in the middle and we work our way out. But what I truly believe is we have to take that apart. And when you take it apart, the largest circle is that blue circle. It's your mindset. It's the new vision that we have for teaching and learning. And that's what blended learning is, right? And it's also the orientation towards change and improvement. And I'm seeing that, guys, in your narratives, where you're trying new things. And when you talk about your next steps, you're already saying, look, this is what I want to do. I want to change things. I want to add some things. And so that becomes important. So today we're really going to be talking a lot about your mindset. We started off with, what do you like about blended learning? But have you really articulated what you want? What is your vision in your classroom? Now, that purple circle is the second largest circle, and I think this one's just as important. That one's grit, meaning that we're not going to give up. Transparency, which means that, you know what, even when I'm talking to my peers or I'm submitting my narratives in my workshop, I'm going to be as transparent as possible. This didn't go well, but you know what, I know next time I'm going to do something else. That's where the collaboration comes in as well, because hopefully you're getting some feedback from me as well as your peers when you put things into the discussion course. So the skills, the technical stuff of how you get GG, right? I love that little one. It's not just getting GG to dance for me, but it's learning math, right? It's well beyond that. It's really that mindset. And that kid, really came through and told us that. And I love that he even talked about the grit that he has going through that. Another thing that you're going to find in the Canvas course is I put in some what we call voices from the field. And in these voices from the field, there's on the Learn page, you're going to find some stuff from Better Lessons. Absolutely love Better Lessons. This had big money from the Gates Foundation in the early, I want to say 2015, 16, about the same time I think that we did the teacher competencies. They had some money from Gates to go out and watch blended learning and videotape and have teachers share their knowledge. You're going to have a chance to hear from these 12 teachers about what their vision for blended learning is. And not only that, some of the little tips and tricks that they would give to you about how they set up their station rotation, or maybe how they did their flipped classroom, but you're going to get an opportunity to hear some voices from the field. The other one that I absolutely love, if you haven't bookmarked it, is the Learning Accelerator. Matter of fact, if you go back to that iNACL paper, and I believe this is in our Canvas course, that started from a research paper from Beth Rabbit. Yeah, like the little bunny. And she did a research paper and she went out and she found that these were some competencies that teachers needed, and iNACL picked up on it and did the full white paper off of her research. So please take some time when you're going through the Canvas workshop this time to look at some of the Better Lessons, and then the Learning Accelerator. They get it. They understand personalization. And I will tell you, my favorite one is actively engaging, right? Getting those kids in there and giving them a growth orientation. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to send you guys off into some breakout rooms, and I want you to talk about what is your vision for blended learning. Hopefully you guys had some really good discussions there. It really starts with that mindset. It really starts with, what is it that I want? If you've ever read the book, Finding Your Why, create that statement, that why statement. I want to do this, such that. It's so important to have that mindset and know why you're doing what you're doing, and being able to articulate it not only for yourself, but for your students as well as for your peers, because oftentimes they're like, what are you doing in your classroom? What does it look like? Why'd you do that? And so having that vision becomes really, really important. We got about 1 second. There it is. Room 1 is back. Thank you all. Welcome back. Welcome back. Hopefully you guys had some really good conversations about your vision, right? I mean, it really becomes important to know why we're doing it and how we're doing it. So I'm going to go through some things that you guys probably, seen before because you've been around and you know what I like to talk about. So just bear with me, because we're going to talk about DOK. And I know oftentimes when I talk about DOK or I say DOK, oftentimes people are like, I don't understand what that is. And because they've got a mindset or mind frame around the Bloom's taxonomy. So I use this slide to help people understand that you'll hear me say low level DOK. That low level DOK is like the low end of the Bloom's taxonomy. It's a lot of the remember, the recall, it's skills and concepts. It's really that low level, right? It's that stuff that we can give away to somebody else. We can create our own video, or we can send them to Khan Academy, or we can have Gigi do it in iReady, right? So those are some things that we can give away, that low level stuff. But when we start thinking that we want to push our kids to the higher level, like our standards have, when we get to the apply and the analyze and evaluate and create, that's a higher part of the pyramid. So that's that higher order of Webb's DOK, or depth of knowledge. So today, as I talk about DOK, because I know I like to say that more so than I'll say Bloom's, just know low numbers means low bottom of the pyramid, and higher numbers mean the high part of the pyramid. Everything we're going to be talking about today, guys, please know that we do have a one-page handout, and it's also in our Canvas course that really talks about this balance blended, which is the 1/3 digital curriculum, 1/3 guided instruction, 1/3 authentic assessment. That's where we get our balance. You have access to this. Again, it is in our Canvas course, but here's a really quick, easy bit.ly that you can use to get it as well. So I3, capital P, capital D, just like my consulting company, P for PDF 002. So everything we're going to talk about today is on that document. But you know what, we're going to go well beyond that. So I like to say blended personalized learning. Now, some people talk about just personalized learning. Some people talk about just blended learning. I got to tell you, to me, it has to be both. We're going to blend it and we're going to make it personalized. So I don't just say personalized learning or just blended personalized. I want to make sure it's all of it. I want some blended and I want some personalized learning going on. And how do I make that happen in the classroom? Well, I take the wisdom of the teachers, because most of you, and I know this because I've looked at your surveys, have 10 plus years in the classroom, right? And you know your standards really well. You know your kids really well. You know when they're going to struggle, you know when they're going to breeze through concepts, right? So you have this wisdom, of course, and the heart. Well, remember, we talked about relationships that are so important to the equation of blended personalized learning. But you can't do it all. And that's where technology comes in. Technology is just a bunch of zeros and one. But the cool thing about those zeros and one is the adaptability. Just like we saw in that video at the beginning, where that boy was talking about getting Gigi across the iceberg so that he can do better in his math. He's doing something different than probably the kid that's sitting on the left and the right of him, because the tech allows to have this adaptive and personalized learning space for each and every student. So being a former math teacher, right, 10 years in the high school math classrooms, I truly believe in this very simple equation of the wisdom of the teachers plus the adaptability of technology to create a personalized learning space for each and individual student. And these three icons are so, so important. That's where we get our balance, right? We want the teacher, we want the technology, and we want the student. So when I say balanced classrooms, I'm saying 1/3 of the time, we want to release the learning to the technology to deliver curriculum. Now, if you go back into the Clay Christensen definition, which is very formal about blended learning, they really say what it is curriculum that's connected to technology and face-to-face. It's not just using tech. It's really about using digital curriculum. And so 1/3 of the time, we want to give away instruction to digital curriculum. Right? And we can do that if it's low level, because most of the digital curriculum, I don't care if it's Apex, Edgenuity, iReady, Khan Academy, even Freckle, right? It's low level math. It's low level English, low level study skills. It's low level stuff. But if we can give that instruction away, the 1/3 of the teacher, can guide and push our students to those higher order skills, into application, into synthesis, into creativity and analysis, right? That's where we want to spend most of our time. Yes, we need to know what's going on inside the digital curriculum so that we can partner with it. I like to say have a dance, right? Dance with our digital curriculum so that we're both moving in the same direction. But we also want to do 1/3 of the time releasing to our students. You remember number 4 on that video was student ownership. And we want our students to own their learning. And I'm not just talking about the digital curriculum. I'm talking about using the academic vocabulary. I'm talking about using the 4 C's, where they're creative, where they're talking about, the collaboration amongst peers. They're critically thinking about topics. They may be low level stuff like quiz trade, but we really want to get them up to that high level of creating maybe a video or an infographic, right? Now that's tech, but it's not tech delivering curriculum. So it wouldn't fall underneath our 1/3 digital content, but it would fall underneath the 1/3 with our student. So when you're thinking about your thirds or your balance, I like to use this triple Venn diagram. 1/3 of the time, we want to let the digital curriculum do what it does best. 1/3 of the time, we want to guide the instruction. Like we saw in the video, it could be small groups, it could be whole group, it could be one-on-one. It's really what the data and what our relationships with our kids are showing us that we need to do at that point in time, and our wisdom, because we know our standards and we know that some standards are really high and I got to get my kids to a high level, but I can't get them to a high level unless they all have the foundations. Well, maybe I can let Khan Academy deliver some of those foundations, or maybe ReadWorks deliver some of those foundations, and then I can push them to the higher order. And then that's where we get that 1/3 of the student, where we really want to have them doing authentic assessment, assessing themselves, making sure that they understand the concepts. And that's where that ownership comes in. They can track their own data. They can see if they're moving and progressing. And you probably have heard of competency-based education, which is a little bit different than blended, but it does have the same concept of kids owning their own data. So what we really want the kids to do is to own that data so that they understand where that comes from. So you see the triple Venn diagram over there on the right. So again, 1/3 of the time digital curriculum, 1/3 of the time guided instruction, 1/3 of the time authentic assessment. So when we throw in the DOKs on this, you can see that we're letting the digital curriculum carry DOK level 1 and 2, that low level basic understanding. If somebody else can introduce fractions for us, then let's let them do it. If somebody else can introduce the 5 elements of a paragraph, like a video off of YouTube, let them do it, right? So we can release that digital curriculum, that low-level digital curriculum, to the technology. But the nice thing about that is we want to get the data from that digital curriculum so that it can help us guide the instruction. Now, sometimes we're going to have to go way down to, basic, because maybe the digital curriculum, I can't find anything that'll talk about the blue herring bird that I know that I need to talk about in science, right? So you may have to go down to DOK level 1 and 2, but not all the time. But we really want to start thinking about stretching our kids to those application stages. And I will tell you, technology is not good at that. But our standards say they need to get there. Not only that, our standards say that they need to get to DOK level 4. But notice where DOK level 4 is. It's down underneath the students. We can guide, we can set up a playlist like we did last month's webinar. We can try to guide the kids there, but the kids have to get to the top of the pyramid on their own, right? Or they can do it with a group. So that's where we can extend the learning and get them into some truly authentic assessment so that they can show us that they've mastered the content that we need them to do. So I know I've been talking a lot, so now it's time for you guys to talk. What struggles are you having with balancing these 3 elements, with the digital curriculum, the guided instruction, and the authentic assessment, or what we like to say is that peer-to-peer engagement? Balanced blended, it doesn't mean that every day it's going to be balanced. It just means over a course of a unit, over a course of a week, you want to have that balance, that 1/3, 1/3. All right, welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. It's nice to have you all back. So I'm going to ask you, and I wish I had thrown up a slide, but we can go ahead and use this one here. Go ahead and throw into chat. What struggles, and you can unmic yourself if you'd like to, what struggles are you having with balancing these 3 elements? Is there one element that's a little harder than another? Is there one element that's easier? So go ahead and you can throw it up there.
I need more time with my kids. So that's my time.
Exactly. I noticed that Lucas threw up over here in chat that one of the things that they talked about was that students taking responsibility. And we're going to talk a little bit more about student ownership. I think later this month, there's one that we're going to talk about learner profiles, which is really helping kids understand, because they have a responsibility in that 1/3, right? So if you haven't defined learning in your classroom and the role of the teacher and the role of the student, remember, if you were with us in our, it's late November 30th, you can go back onto the YouTube channel, or I believe you all still have it in your Canvas. I know it's sunsetted, but you still have access to it. That where we talked about how you are the guide, right? You're setting up a roadmap, but their responsibility is to take the journey. And so having that conversation with your kids becomes very, very important. And then, of course, here we have Brianna who's talking about time. Again, the same thing, right? All these assessments eating up our classroom and finding out where our kids are at. If we had the data, that would be ideal. Oftentimes what's happening is we're taking NWA or MAPS tests and we're not getting the data right away. And so I get it that the higher ups want the data, but I bet you probably could have told them the same thing that data is telling them. So I get that. Those are two hard things. Both Ruth and Brianna, I agree with both of you. So let's talk about how we can balance the blended in the classroom. Because I got to tell you, when I think about introducing new content, even you guys, right? When I'm working with you guys as adult learners, I'm trying to think of, well, there's different ways I can introduce content. I can do it like we do these webinars, right? Very visual, very audio, consumption, right? Or I can have you read a text or an article, or I can do technology, throw in some videos, or if there's some websites that I can lead you guys to, right? So same thing in your classroom. Start thinking about when you get into a new unit, and let's say it's a unit on health, right? And you're thinking, oh my God, health is one of those things that I don't have a whole lot of time to do a whole lot of searching on. This is a great time to think about how can I let technology take over DOK level 1 and 2, right? So think about when you're introducing new content, who needs to be introducing it, right? Is it something that I can give away to the technology? Is it something that I can give away to the kids to consume either in text or either video? Or is it something that I have to lead? So when you're thinking about your 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 balance, think about your students too can lead in that technology, because guess what? Some of them have some background knowledge, right? Or we can give them a text that gives them background knowledge, or a video, right? Or we can create our own video. I know we don't have a whole lot of prep time, but we could create our own video and give that to the kids either in a flipped classroom or even in station rotation in our regular classroom. So then I could do that really cool thing that's called teaching by walking around. Right? I make a 5-minute video or a 3-minute video, and I get to teach by walking around in those 5 to 3 minutes. So think about how can new content be delivered as you're moving along in your classroom and you're looking for that balance. I'm a big fan. And guys, if you were with me on that first webinar that we did on digital curriculum, there was that huge PowerPoint that had lots of different places that we can get digital curriculum from, even skills and practice, right? So if you've been with us, if not, you can go back into the YouTube site and you can find the webinar from, I believe, October 19th that shows you the different places that you can give up a release to the digital curriculum, because kids are engaged with these softwares, right? And I know that most of it is aligned to standards. The coolest part, just like you see on that picture over there on the right, is it creates this personalized learning space. And that's so important, because then kids can track their own data. A moment ago, I saw over in chat is kids taking ownership. Well, if you're the only one that's assessing them and setting goals for them, then you own that. Well, how about let's let them make goals. I'm going to do 3 lessons today. I'm going to do 7 lessons by the end of the week. I'm going to get an 80% on this quiz. And if I don't, I'm going to retake it. Now they're setting their own goals, and now they're setting data to help them figure out their learning process. Now, keep in mind, it's only going to be low level DOK level 1 and 2, but that's okay. It works great for addition facts, right? For those small, low level stuff, they can still track the data, they can set their goals, and it really helps our students, because we know not all our students are at the same place at the same time. And when we give up to digital curriculum, we have that opportunity to create that personalized learning space. But that changes the way that we instruct. So if 1/3 of the time I'm letting the digital curriculum carry it, I've got Khan Academy or Freckle or iReady or Apex, whatever, even stuff that I've created, I'm giving away to the kids to learn. So that changes the way that I instruct. When I'm in the classroom, I'm not always the sage on the stage. I'm going to do a lot of teaching by walking around. Matter of fact, 2/3 of the time, you should be teaching by walking around while the kids are working on the digital content, while the kids are working in peer-to-peer groups. You are teaching by walking around. But there are going to be times where you need to do the whole group instruction, or you might use a station rotation. And remember, we did talk about that in November. So if you want, you can go back to the YouTube one and look at the video from that as well. But what we want to do in the guided instruction is really, guys, this is where that relationships become so important, right? Because the kids cannot have a relationship with technology. So what we want to do is we want to have that beating heart, and we want to create those relationships, those high fives, the posing of questions. What can we do next time? How did you learn this? Those types of relationships. Computers aren't asking those things. They're just spitting back data, which is good for goal setting, but they really want us to think about what are the power and the essential standards that kids must get to a higher order level to. And I need to design instruction for that. Either I'm going to carry it like a sage on the stage and do some direct instruction, or I'm going to set up a playlist or a choice board or something that pushes a project that pushes our kids to those higher level DOKs. So it changes the way that we do this. Now, remember, this is only a third of the time, because 2/3 of the time you're teaching by walking around. And here's the third that we give away to the kids. Now, this could be low level stuff as well as really high level stuff. It could be, the quiz trade with the vocabulary cards or the math facts. It could be something really low level, but what we want them to be doing is we want them to be collaborating with their peers. I really like to talk about not only the 4 C's, but this should be peer-to-peer engagement. The shoulder partner, the groups of 3, what you really want them working together. Even like when I looked at, guys, your playlist from last time, you want to see when you do a playlist, I always like to have a component, and you see it here when we do the webinars where you guys get to collaborate. Kim doesn't even walk into those rooms. That's really your time, right? So you think through, how can you set up your classroom so you have that 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, right? So 2/3 of the time that you're teaching by walking around. So it may look like this station rotation that we have here, and we've talked a little bit about how you can set that up, where 1/3 is digital content, 1/3 of the time you're pulling a small group, and 1/3 of the time they're doing peer-to-peer instruction. Or it could be something that is one day you're doing a direct instruction or doing a lab, and then one day they're working on a project. So not 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 every day. But over the course of the week or a unit of study, you want to have this balance of 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. And like I said, sometimes it's hard to really think about that 1/3 student, right? But if we don't give away the learning to the student, their behaviors won't change. When we give away a little bit of, and make it small, make it a 3-minute activity, a 5-minute activity, a 7-minute. Notice how I'm slowly releasing behaviors. And we're going to talk a lot more about that in our next webinar when we talk about ownership. But we want to start using the language about, are you a team player? Are you a leader today? Using the language so that they know those soft skills that we talked about in December, that they're developing. And yes, just small 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, not a whole 20 minutes, because boy, by about minute 7, boom, they're off doing their own thing, playing a video game, right? So we really want to think through that third. So when you're designing your units of study, you know what the power and essential standards are. Right? The knowledge, the wisdom of the teacher. You have all of this. You know where kids have misconceptions, when you need to build in scaffolds. You know what kids need intervention. You know when you can release to small groups, or when you need to pull large groups, right? So you want to think through, what is it that I can then release to my digital partner? And I'm a big fan, no more than about 2 or 3 digital partners that I can lean on every time. So I'm not having to train the kids where to go and how to log in. And 1/3 of the time, I want to release to my students. And again, we want to have those behaviors set in place where, the expectation is, and we'll do it for 3 minutes or we'll do it for 5 minutes until they can get to a longer period of time. So it might look something like this. We're going to use our digital partner to help personalize the data and use that data to help our kids set goals, help our kids monitor their own progress. That's where they start getting that personalization, where they start owning their data. Right? It might be small, low level, DOK level 1 and 2, but it's a great place to start with ownership and goal setting and monitoring their own data. Then we can release a third of the time to the peer-to-peer activities. Now, there are great ones that we did, like the World Cafe, the coaching, the carousel. There's lots of little activities that we can do, but we also want to push our kids to those higher order projects where they're really doing critical thinking and they're really pushing on those 4 C's. And as we do that, what we are doing is developing those SEL skills. And we're not doing a whole lesson on SEL skills. What we're doing is we're doing a lesson on math, but asking them to manage their time, asking them to manage their impulsivity, asking them to have grit and perseverance, right? So think about how you can set that up so that 1/3 of the time you are leading, but 2/3 of the time you are teaching by walking around. So this month, what you're going to be doing, we've learned a lot of stuff over the last couple of months, but I want you to keep it simple. Just try to determine what your priorities are. Remember, we had a conversation earlier about what your vision is. Think about, how can I release some of the learning to my digital partners? How can I create peer-to-peer or hands-on engagements, right? Because like we think about last month when we did playlists, we want to have online and offline as well. And we want to plan with balance in mind. And that balance really is 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, which is 2/3 teaching by walking around.